Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Chris, and today I wanted to talk about the top 3 ways that stacking gold and silver will help you financially. They're not what you think. So, a lot of videos right now are again hyping up the fear, the fear narrative: inflation, inflation, inflation. The economy is going to collapse. The monetary system is going to collapse. This, that, the other thing. The reality is these things never come to fruition, and the people that hype them, I get it gets views. Again, I watch plenty of those channels. I watch their videos, I listen to what they have to say, but it's always parroting the same things over and over and over. Oh, the monetary system is going to crash because there's so much debt created. Oh, look at the inflation, the dollar is going to be worthless. Oh my god, they're going to raise rates, it's going to destroy the system. Oh, the stock market's going to crash. No. The answer is no. All of those things may happen, at some point, but it's not going to happen right now. And it's not something you can put your money on. Because if you knew that, if these channels that hype these kind of things knew that, I can show you right now ways that you can become a trillionaire or one of the richest people on earth with whatever assets you do have. If you're willing to bet everything that you have on something like that and you're so confident in it, put your money where your mouth is. The reality is, they're not. They're just looking for views. They're just preying upon people's sensibilities for things that people are concerned about. The reality is the real ways that stacking gold and silver are going to help you are much more basic, much more fundamental. The first one is, right off the bat, stacking is going to help you be a better saver. What do I mean by that? Well, right off the bat, with stacking, you're putting money, fiat currency, into something that's tangible. So you're saving money in some type of an instrument, whether it's these guys, whether it's something a little bit more expensive, whatever it is. You're just transitioning fiat currency into another store of value, which is the metal. Now, metals prices, you hear a lot about metals prices are going to be way more in the future, or inflation's going to have an effect, or this or that. No. The reality is none of it's true. I mean, the metals markets are so controlled and they operate in such a tight area that none of these things is really likely to happen at all. I mean, it's right up there with the lottery. Silver hitting $500 is right up there with you hitting the lottery. Let's say multiple times on like a Powerball. It's just not going to happen. I mean, could it happen? Absolutely. Anything could happen. An asteroid could, hit the Earth at some point in the near future and destroy everything. Just as likely. You being a better saver by putting money into precious metals, there's a cost to that. The cost is the premiums and the chance that the metals value falls over time. Now, again, what you hear with a lot of channels is that money's a hedge, or silver and gold are a hedge against inflation. Yeah, but the reality is that over the time frame that even comes into play, most stackers have, liquidated their assets, or, something came up where they needed to use that money, that kind of thing. So it's just not, where your head should be at. With stacking, it should be, hey, I'm buying over time. I'm putting money into something that I understand a little bit about and believe in. And that, at some point in the future, it may really be a good store of value. That's where it's going to benefit you, first and foremost, as a saver. If you're buying gold and silver as a store of value over time, and you get to the point where you're really not looking at it all the time, you're kind of just sticking to the course and putting money into it over time, you're going to benefit. You're going to benefit, especially because with dollar cost averaging, the spot prices and the premiums, it's going to be to your benefit. And it takes a lot of the impulse out of finance, which emotional finance is a whole field that you can study, which is very interesting, and it's true. There's a lot of truth to it. People are emotional animals, and they do things that are very counterintuitive and very bad for them, at specific points in time and with certain catalysts. So when you know that kind of thing, saving with precious metals can really be a benefit to you over a longer period of time. Secondly, when you think about how things are going to progress moving forward as far as the economy, or let's say the markets, or even finances in general, one of the big ways that stacking can save you is, let's say, for example, you wake up one day, go to get your coffee at Starbucks, or go to the McDonald's drive-thru, your card gets declined. The hell? Why? I have money. I know I have money. You try to log into your bank account. You look at your accounts and they're all frozen for some reason. What is going on? Let's say, for example, somebody stole your identity and they took all of your money out of your accounts. Your credit cards are frozen, whatever the case is. You don't have access to money. You normally you would think your first impulse is to go to the bank and get some cash out of your account. Well, what if they took it? What if they took that out of your electronically stored value inside your bank accounts and your credit accounts? Well, if you have something like this, you can turn this readily back into cash. There are a lot of places you could go. Worst case scenario, you could go to a pawn shop. Are they gonna, give you the run over for whatever you get? Yeah, they probably will. But let's say, for example, you decide to pawn it instead of selling it. Instant access to cash. That is something that's so important that people forget about. People don't even think like that anymore. People think like, well, I've got, emergency savings in the bank. Well, what happens if you can't access that? There's so many different reasons why that could happen that people don't think about. It's a no-brainer. Having stuff like this that you could easily transition back into cash is super valuable. Absolutely super valuable. And again, one of the top ways that people forget how stacking can help you. Third, along that same line of thinking, with stacking, you're basically off the radar. You're off the grid. Now, one of the things that a lot of people, especially preppers and stackers in general, when you think about like how vulnerable our system of monetary finance, especially transactional finance is, at this point, it pretty much purely depends on electronic media. If you don't have access to the internet, if you don't have access to apps, if you don't have access to those things, you are definitely, at a high risk for not being able to access your money. But what happens if something happens with that? Let's say an EMP event. That's, again, a big hypothetical, but it doesn't have to be like, an active war EMP event. It could be a solar flare. It can be a lot of different things. Well, what happens if you're not able to access that online content? What if the bank systems are down? What do you do then? Now, keep in mind, even with a scenario like this, the general populace would be screwed because they don't have access to anything that would be, a transactional medium. But if you do, you're that much ahead of the game. Who knows how long something like that lasts. Again, all of these things are things that people don't think about because you always think that there would be a quick fix, right? Well, people can't be without money for a long period of time, right? They would fix it. Everyone would focus on fixing it. Yeah, you're right. Everyone would focus on fixing it. But the problem is these days, when you look at natural disasters, you look at things like that, there's places where people don't have water for days and weeks at a time, which is crazy. Like you think about like the world that we live in, like what? You couldn't get water to like parts of a state here in the United States, in the continental US, but those things happen. It's real, and it's a real threat. This pandemic, whatever your thoughts on it, should show you that anything is possible. Anything can happen. And things like this, the real value is going to come into something like this from being prepared. Being prepared for all of those things and understanding the real value. It's not going to come into play with a hyperinflation scenario and we're going to trade, I'm going to trade my pandas for some food. Or no, that's not going to happen. And the people who are saying that, again, there's just no basis in reality. I mean, it's basically up there with the flat earth at this point. It's just not true. And if you're stocking for those reasons because you think it's going to be a short-term hedge against inflation, it's just not. Well, why not? That's the way it should work, right? Yeah, that is the way it should work. If metals were not a highly manipulated commodity, then yeah, maybe it might work like that. But in the real world, it doesn't. And so the sooner that you understand that, the sooner that you're going to keep, listening to the channels that say hyperinflation, you better stack, get your hands on metals. No, because even if you look at the technicals on metals, they're more likely to go down into the short and medium term future than to go up. These are the things that you need to know, that you need to really understand about how something like this is really going to benefit you in the real world. Not the hypothetical, oh my gosh, like, Jerome Powell is going to take my my fiat currency away. No, he's not. And the reality is, if you look at the 2008 crash, they said, Bernanke at that point said, we're going to stimulate the economy until things go back to normal. Then we're going to raise interest rates and stop all of this liquidity that we've been creating. What ended up happening? It never happened, and it's not going to happen this time. The system's addicted to cheap money, and it's addicted to the Fed's interference in the system. It is what it is. This is a completely different monetary system than pre-2008, which is why when you hear people like Economic Ninja talking about, hey, this is how the real estate crash is gonna happen, and this and that. The guy is stuck in pre-2008. He literally is, and he knows that he knows nothing about the way things work now. He just doesn't. Smart guy, has a lot of insight into different things, but he's always grasping at straws. And if you look at YouTube, there's so much of that out there. There's so many people that are grasping at straws to get fear and hype and all of the different things. But the reality is, you need to keep your mind grounded in reality, because that is where you exist, that is where I exist, and that's where your finances are going to exist. They don't exist in La La Land. They don't exist with you planning to hit the Powerball jackpot. It's the same thing with you're thinking of $500 silver. It's in that same realm. It's just not going to happen. So plan accordingly, stack accordingly, stack according to your goals, but understand what the real benefits are, not the fake hyped up ones. Anyway, that's it for today. Have a good one.